What's up guys, Mr. Vivarium here. In today's episode I'm going to show you how to do a low-tech planted tank aquascape. So before I get started with this video, I would like to give a big thank you to our sponsor, which is theplantguy.ca. And I'm going to throw a link in the description so you can go check out the website. The plants came in extremely fast. I didn't expect it until they were at my doorstep, and then they were extremely high quality, which were the jungle balls as well as the dwarf sage. I'd have to give this website a 5-star rating, and it's really awesome too as well. I'm going to throw the link to the Facebook page so you guys can get frequent updates on it. So before we actually cover the aquascape, it's important to go over the lighting that we're using. Now, these are 330-watt LED floodlights from Sun. Now these put out ample amount of light to grow any spectrum of plant, and as well they are water resistant, so you don't have to worry about splashing, which may occur. So for the fuel of this tank, we are going with the Miracle-Gro Nature's Care raised bed soil. Now this is a completely organic mix which will be good for your fish, so you don't have to worry about any chemical fertilizers. As well, this has a NPK reading of 10/7/10, so this will cause your plants to just burst with growth, which will be super great. Now, when you've completed dumping in your soil, it's important to level it out so that you have more towards the back and less at the front. This gives you more of a horizon sort of effect, which allows for easier aquascaping later on. Another beneficial thing that can be added to your aquarium substrate is Mexican red clay. It adds iron, so all of your red plants can get that beautiful lush red coloration, and it also acts as nutrient storage because of its high cation exchange capacity. Now that we have the clay in the substrate, we can now go over the entire aquarium with roughly 1 inch of pool filter sand. Now when capping off your aquarium, it's important that your cap is porous enough to allow for proper gas exchange, or else you'll be getting gas buildups in between the two layers, which will be possibly detrimental to your fish if the buildup gets high enough. Sometimes in aquascaping, things don't exactly go as planned. As you can see here, I had this beautiful piece of driftwood that I was planning on using in the corner, but it was simply too wide and too large to fit in the tank properly and work how I wanted it to. So instead, I improvised and I used this beautiful giant blue rock that I had just sitting in my backyard. Of course, I boiled it and made sure it was sterile, and then I tested the water pH afterwards to make sure everything was stable and not buffering anything. Now that we have the main focal point of the aquarium established, it's always a good idea to try to make your aquascape look as naturalistic as possible, opposed to a mismatch and random assortment of things that don't look like they're in the right place. When you're trying to organize or place your rocks in the tank, it's always good to do them in sort of piles or groups to make it look like they've been blown together by a current or have been pushed downstream by the water. With any aquascape, it's always good to have an idea of what you want your tank to look like. Here you can see I drew a rough sketch of what I was envisioning this tank to look like. Now it's important to remember that when you're creating your aquascape, things can be very variable and end up not looking at all what you had intended them to do, but at the same time it can still end up looking very beautiful. Now that we have all the hardscape done, we get to play around with the softscape, which is all of our plants. Here we have some dwarf Sagittarius that I received from the plantguy.ca. Now, what we're going to be doing here is using these dwarf Sag for the foreground to create sort of a grassy meadow. So the next species we're using is a locally collected species that I've washed off and made sure is pretty clean for the tank, is Alinidea canadensis. Now this is a fairly common species that's spread throughout North America, as well as it is invasive in other parts of the world. I'd also like to mention, if you are going to collect plants for your aquarium, please make sure it's legal. Where I am, we are allowed to do this. It is in our bylaws and our federal laws, so just make sure you're not poaching any plants from your natural habitat. Here's another plant that we're using in our aquascape. This is Cryptocorn When Did I Bronze. Now this is going to give us a lovely burgundy coloration in our aquascape. As well, this plant will use the iron-rich Mexican clay to continually give us that bright burgundy color. First off, we're using the jungle valve that we received from the plantguy.ca. Now jungle valve is an extremely easy to grow plant, and it's going to produce a nice thick wall up in the right corner, as it will spread runners all around that area, and then it will continue to grow up towards the light, and it just has that beautiful, elegant, flowing look in the water current. Now for the next plant, we have the Amazon sword. This has to be one of the most popular aquarium plants. They're readily available pretty much anywhere, and they're just a really super easy to grow plant as long as you have a dirted substrate that's high in nutrients, because these guys are heavy root feeders. Now the next set of plants we're using are called mid-ground plants. So this means they don't grow as tall as the background, but they don't grow as short as the foreground. And we're using some more Cryptocorn and red sword. Now what we're doing is filling up our aquarium about halfway, and this is to alleviate pressure on the taller background plants that we're going to be putting in here so that they don't bend over and break. As well, a tip for filling up your aquarium so that you don't mess up your substrate is to put a plate down so that it will deflect the water. These next two species that I'm putting down are Liguigia and Rotella. These are both great background plants. As well, I do not know the species of each, but that doesn't change the fact that they're great. This here is Water Wisteria. This is a great mid-ground to background plant, but here I'm going to grow it as mid-ground. Here guys, we have the piece of driftwood that I found a spot for, and as you can see, I'm placing in the Anubias, which is a super easy to grow plant, doesn't need any substrate, just has to have its rhizome out of the soil. As well, I am attaching on a small clump of Java moss. I'm not using any strings or super glue to attach these, I'm just wedging them into the cracks, and they stick super easy. So guys, if you have a tank and you want to add in some extra flow for your aquascape just to get some good water circulation if your pumps aren't strong enough, I would recommend adding in a wave maker such as this Ocreon, and this is just going to give you some nice flow in your tank, as well as agitate the surface water, which will aid in some oxygen diffusion. So for the last step in the aquascape, we're going to be adding in some beneficial bacteria. These ones are from Fluvol, and this is just going to speed up our cycling process much faster. All we're going to have to do is follow the instructions on the bottle, and then we will be able to add our fish. So here is the final product from our aquascape. As you can see, it came together beautifully. Everything is going to grow together nicely. I'm going to work on the maintenance over the next few weeks, so you guys should expect a really nice update pretty soon. And don't forget to go to theplantguy.ca and buy some plants from him. Hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to share it. Till next time, guys, God bless.